Wednesday, January the 24th, 2018, to you. Brazil. Undoubtedly, it is one of the world's most fascinating countries. Brazil has fascinating music, fascinating architecture, fascinating sports, and fascinating politics. A little bit too much fascinating, methinks. Today, a Brazilian appeals court voted 3-0 to uphold a corruption conviction to former President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. The court also increased his original sentence from 9.5 years to 12 years and 1 month in jail. If things were not bleak enough for Mr. da Silva, he was declared ineligible for public offices, including the presidency of the Republic. Charges pressed against Mr. da Silva are really serious. These include money laundering and accepting bribes in return for help in winning contracts for Petrobras, Brazil's state oil company. Therefore, I find his chance of winning the appeal at the Supreme Court too slim. So, Mr. da Silva is leading opinion polling for an election he is denied to participate. Did not I write that Brazil has fascinating politics? The judicial sentence poses a political dilemma. First and foremost, I want to skip writing about Mr. da Silva's popularity. Perhaps middle-class voters personify in him the good old days when Brazilian economy grew and they could leave poverty. Indeed, Brazil's GDP grew at an average rate of 4% during Mr. da Silva's government, mostly thanks to high commodity prices instead of his leadership. Anyway, many voters prefer to turn the blind eye onto Mr. da Silva. Also, I would like to skip writing about how generalized corruption is in Brazil. Most of Mr. da Silva's opponents simply lack of moral authority to judge him. What I do want to write about is the risk that Mr. da Silva's absence poses for the legitimacy of the general election due in October this year. What could it happen if the Workers' Party decides to boycott the election? That would damage Brazil's democracy. That said, I do not trust other candidates either. Mr. Jair Bolsonaro is ill-prepared for office considering his bigotry and populist views. In my humble opinion, Brazil's next president should be either a technocrat or an intellectual. A judge would also be a reasonable choice. In politics, we must think in relative rather than absolute terms. Brazil needs to find a suitable alternative. That said, such an alternative only has 9 months to convince around 100 million Brazilians that he or she is a reasonable choice. Let us hope that Brazil may be reasonable too. Oh wait, I forgot how fascinating that country actually is. The world is still on.